All right, guys, thanks for being on for this section of today's call. We're gonna go over with the new agent or newer agent. So I have Jake Wambaugh on with me. Jake's been selling for like this is your third week of actually selling in the field, right?
Mm.
And so obviously, I'll let you give a little bit of background, but Jake came in and wanted to really build a business, saw the opportunity to build, really big overrides and passive income. And we kind of talked back and forth for a while. And then recently, right before Jake's son was born, Maverick, he was like, I'm gonna start selling, like let's crush this thing because what a low stress time to just start selling insurance right when your son's born, right? But you were like, no, and we talked and you were like, I want to start selling so that my guys will also start selling because we talked about it. It's hard to get your people to sell if you don't sell, right? And so you've come out of the gate and have sold over 10,000 your first 3 weeks in a row, and had a really strong start. So, dude, first of all, if you can give a little bit of background on yourself, what you were doing before this, and kind of what attracted you to working with us, and then we'll go into what you've been doing to have such a quick start. But I appreciate you being on, dude, and it's been fun to work with you so far.
Yeah, brother, I appreciate it. So born and raised in San Diego, California. Pretty, uh, normal upbringing. For me, I mean, guess no, there's no two normals, but it was just me and my mom. I was an only child, and so just worked hard, played sports. My mom was a great role model for me, just work ethic wise and stuff. Um, was fortunate enough to go play football at the University of Washington. 2014 was my freshman year. Played there, had a great time. Was fortunate enough to be on some really good teams and under a really good coach. And I finished there. My last game was New Year's Day, 2019. We played in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. Less than a week later, I think it was 5 days later, I was started at Oregon State, where I got my master's in exercise science. I wanted to go into strength and conditioning. Um, COVID, I mean, honestly, COVID kind of it was a blessing in disguise, especially for me. Um, just with kind of how I pivoted. I went back to Seattle after I had defended my thesis. There was no mobility in the strength and conditioning world and in college football. So there were no opportunities related to that to use my degree. So I went into, I got into some personal training, some private stuff, kind of using that degree. A really good mentor in Seattle who granted me an opportunity. So I kind of got into that. I was fortunate enough to work with a lot of professionals, surgeons, real estate people, financial professionals who kind of were like, just kind of opened my eyes to different opportunities and possibilities. And so I had a small business success, um, 2021, early 2021. Was kind of hanging out. I didn't really know which specific direction I wanted to go professionally after that. But I decided to make the move back to San Diego, be close to family. And so I found insurance um, really right when I came back here. And it was all I knew was guys like Zach, and I see the integrity deals, I see all this type of stuff, and so I wanted to just build a big team. So I wanted to build a big team. I wanted to sell to integrity. I wanted an exit, and I wanted to you know play golf or whatever. I don't really play golf, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to hang it up, and so that's how I was just trying to it was volume. I just wanted you know, heads through the door, like just bring people in, bring people in. And so, where I was at previously, I think that I wasn't leading in the right way. And so I reference it to football. Like my linebacker coach in college, he at least played the game. And so, he just has a different perspective and can relate a little bit more to his players. He played the game. And so for me, I was like, like I just guys weren't producing the way that I had, seen was possible. I'd seen other people produce at a high level, and so um, going in, getting the licenses and everything necessary, the contracts to do that. I was like, I kind of want to start from scratch. And so Zach and I started talking. I wanted to build again with, under Zach's, um, guidance, and I'd seen him do some really cool things. And I wanted to be a part, and so I kind of wanted to rebuild. And I knew I wanted to produce. I was just, getting licenses and things like that. But I kind of, like Zach mentioned, kind of around that time of my son being born, I was like, all right, now's as good a time as any. And so I just kind of went in.
Mhm.
I think that I have some natural ability, um, but it's really just kind of putting in the work and sticking to a schedule. Zach has helped like in so many different ways, from uh, building the team, helping me sell. Everyone's super responsive. I couldn't have done what I've done in my first few weeks without the support. But it was just nice for me to kind of put this in perspective and be able to say like, hey, I don't I don't necessarily think I have an extreme amount of talent as it pertains to sales. Much greater than most people who have even just a little bit of charisma or whatever. And so it was kind of just putting in perspective for me, like, hey, uh, it's just working, and it's just being consistent. And so being able to produce at the level that I'd seen and heard of, and like seeing that it's real, and leading from the front and being kind of an example for my team and our agents has been pretty cool. And I'm super fired up and happy to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because the way you started is like the opposite of the way I started. Like where I just wanted to sell for a couple, I was able to sell for a year, stack some money up and go back to school.
Yeah.
And then I sold a lot. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm gonna build a team. And you were like, I just want to build and
Yeah.
not really sell. And so it's kind of cool to hear the other perspective. I have a question that's not really related to insurance, but I've seen this with some people that I played lacrosse with in college, and you played football. Like a lot of people get stuck in that area where they're like, oh, like my path was I was going to play college football and then do exercise science and then work in the college football world. And you mentioned like you got around other professionals that kind of opened your eyes. Do you think that was what allowed you to break away from that? Because I've met a ton of people who are like, dude, I'm just, I want to coach or I want to do this. And they're so talented and they could be in business for themselves or they could do something like this to be able to, run their own coach or whatever it is, right? To have something significant, but they just kind of like, they feel like they don't want to break away from what they thought their path would be.
Yeah.
What do you think allowed you to go, you know what? I'm going to scrap it and start something different and not be worried
Yeah.
about what my degree was in or what my path should be or what my friends think I should be doing.
Right. Yeah. I think for me, it was a function of, you know, like I had kind of discovered strength conditioning as a field when I was like maybe a sophomore in college. I loved all my strength coaches. Like they're
Yeah.
just like the best dudes, these big, like grizzly bear, just like meatheads. And I was a meathead and I always wanted to be in the gym. They were just so cool. And I'm like, they wear sweatpants to work. I saw this article about after bonuses, what our head strength coach made this one year that we went to college football playoff. And I was like, I want to do that. And then go to grad school, do all that stuff. Turns out it's like, whoa, this is hard, like long hours, long days, and they earn every penny. And I would say, in fact, they're underpaid. But like I said, COVID was kind of a blessing in disguise for all of us, probably. But for me, in that situation, because like I probably would have just gone and gotten like a lower like bottom guy on the totem pole, strength coach, work my way up, and I probably would have enjoyed it, to a certain extent. There's good things and bad things to any industry, right? But I probably would have stuck with it and would have been fine. I wasn't a huge fan of like the nomadic lifestyle of having to bounce around and work your way up the totem pole and go here and all that stuff. But going back and working with those professionals, I think for me, it wasn't like to me, like football was super behind, in the rear view for me. I had a great time. I definitely see a lot of guys really like holding on to that. They can't let go of that identity and all that stuff. I think for me, I always enjoyed like the camaraderie, like the workouts, the conditioning, like the hard stuff. And so I think for me, it was just kind of looking at a new like field of play, so to speak, and a new way to compete, and seeing, um, those some of my clients that were really successful in a lot of different, ventures, and professions. It was just like really cool, and I just kind of was like, I just need to figure out like what I want to do next, and ultimately, to me, it was just about finding, um, a vehicle that I could, get into and do for the next like decades, like thinking longer term. And yeah, I just found this. So
Well, that dude, I think when you get to meet some people that have done really well, like I've been really lucky to meet some successful people in my life, and you met some, it demystifies that, and you're like, oh, like that, if that person can do it, like they seem perfectly competent, but
yeah,
they put their pants on the same way I do. Like
right,
they're not like so much smarter or so much more talented than I am. Like I could probably figure that out. And I
right,
remember when I first met some people that when I remember I first met a few people that made like seven figures, eight figures, I was like, oh, just a normal ass dude, right? Like, okay. And I think it gives you a lot of perspective. You're like, they just do little things and they get really good at one thing, right?
yeah,
And
hundred
they go
percent,
with that one thing, and they don't have to be like the most, like you said, they don't have to be the most charismatic person or the smartest person, but they just find their niche and they crush in their niche, right?
right.
And when I
Proximity,
started that with
like,
this business, dude, I was like, if you just get good at this one thing, like people always talk about, oh, I want to, have all these streams of income. I'm like, dude, I only had one
yeah,
forever,
yeah,
but the one made me a lot of money because I got good at one thing, which was selling insurance to people how to sell insurance, right?
right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the proximity
Yeah.
thing, like you got around that, and you're like, oh, okay, he doesn't seem like he's that extraordinary, and he's doing
Yeah.
that, making that, or whatever. I think that was like even with like in the locker room, one day uh, you're on a team with this guy, and then a few months later, like he's signing a $12 million,
Yeah.
first round draft pick, signing bonus, and you're like, I mean, like,
Like I used to hit that guy in practice.
yeah, like it's just,
Yeah.
and you kind of lose the affinity for like the NFL, and it's like when you're a kid, it's like, oh my god, and it's like, I mean, dude, like one of my buddies like that I room with, my freshman year. I was like, I used to sleep 6 inches next to him, head to head in like our dorm room freshman year. And
Yeah.
now he's, playing football and doing all that stuff. It's just like they're normal guys. Like you said, it's just they found one thing that they did exceptionally well, and then just went in on that. So
So what do you think for selling? Because selling the way you have like right out of the gate is it's something that people used to never do. And now I think it's a lot more common because I think we went, hey, this is not that difficult. It's pretty simple. It really boils down to leads, which you've been getting leads,
yep.
making phone calls and taking the coaching. And what I would say is like it's maybe a function of the way you were raised, maybe a function of being in college sports, but you take coaching well. Like I'm like, hey, just do this different, and then you do it. You don't even ask any questions, right? Which I think is super important. But so I think that's why you've developed so fast. But what are a few tips that you would give, new people that are struggling to get rolling? Like, yes, they have to make the phone calls. What are some things you're doing, you think, when you get clients on the phone, to get them to an appointment or to a sale? Because you're starting to coach people, so you see people do wrong. So
Yeah.
what are a couple of things you think that you're doing right now that allow you to get through the sale, not knowing everything about the products, not knowing everything about, different companies? You just know a little bit, but it's enough to help the clients out.
Yeah, I think like you alluded to, they got to get on the phone first. So I think we used to, there was a terminology, and it's probably corny that I keep going back to football, but it was like paralysis by analysis. Like you just, if you keep over analyzing what you're trying to do instead of just doing it, like you're just going to paralyze yourself. You're just never going to take action. And at the end of the day, you learn, the best when you get hit in the mouth. Like you're just forced to like react and figure it out. That's
Mhm.
just that's human nature. Like we're adaptable and we just figure out a way. So that's definitely in my DNA, just from my upbringing and stuff. My mom is always just figure out a way. Like, and it's not always going to be pretty, whether it's making bills at the end of the month or whatever, but you just figure it out.
Yeah.
So for me, yeah, I think a huge testament to you and helping me with leads um, and me just taking the action on it. But in terms of when you get somebody on the phone, I think a lot of it goes back to just having a conversation, and I, it's going to be a really, really small percentage of deals that you close where the two people like just don't like each other.
Yeah.
If someone sees you as their adversary over the phone, or like they're just like, God, this guy's really dry, or like it just it's really a low chance that gets. It doesn't matter the product or what you're selling. Like if it's just like, I really don't like this guy, like it's probably not going to happen.
Right.
So I think you have to be able to, be charismatic and talk to people, and hear people and just be human with them. I think you have to be able to explain the products um, simply, and not inundate them with like too much uh, um, just fluff, and try to act like you're too smart or anything like that, or kind of turns people off. But I think, yeah, man, just having a conversation with people, and at the end of the day, you're calling people that have, in one way or another, requested some information on something that you have a license to sell, and understanding that um, you're protecting people. I think sometimes insurance can get a bad rap, and it's just funny because it's not everybody needs every product, and at different stages of life it's going to be a right fit or a wrong fit. But at some point, like there's a product for anybody, any age, in any situation. And so as long as you're serving the client to their needs, and I mean you're doing them a service. And so I think when you kind of approach it from that angle, and like you're there to help, and you want to connect with these people on a personal level too, and have fun with it, because life can be tough, and especially on a lot of like middle America. Like, even I know just in my own experience, like you have a good conversation with someone in customer service and something that's been a headache, and you're waiting in a call center or whatever trying to get taken care of, then you just have someone who's just like a really just nice person to talk to, and a pleasant experience. um that's how you close deals. So I would say,
Yeah.
yeah, being
I was
human.
gonna say you sent me that text the other day. I'm gonna pull it up real quick, but that guy texted you after and said, what'd they say? Like basically like, hey, I really appreciate the service. Like, thank you for taking time and explaining everything and making it a pleasant experience for me. And I
Yeah,
think that's a big testament to what you're saying, right? Like if you do a good job and the client tells you like, hey, I really appreciated that you slowed down, took time with me and made this enjoyable, then they're much more likely to buy from you, right?
100%.
Um, so like what does that look like to, let them know that, like, go through your like intro with someone if they answer the phone, how are you letting them know that you're there to help them out, but also that you're not going to be a dick and be overly salesy and like pressury? Like what does that, first 30 seconds of your phone call sound like?
Yeah, it's funny. I'll share one because it was being kind of like direct, and I think you have to be able to really read a person in a situation. It's funny because I went to the University of Washington, and so UW was playing Oregon, the Pac-12 championship on a Friday night. I was at my fiance's family's house. We were all watching the game, and I'm like, I got to go run an appointment. So I go downstairs, get some quiet time, and I'm like, this is my team. Like, this is the last Pac-12 championship.
And it's actually your team. Like where
It's
everyone
my
else says
team.
that's my team, and it's like the Patriots or something. It's not your
Oh my
freaking
God.
team.
Yeah. Like I
It's
had this
actually your
guy come
team.
up,
You played on it, so you can
this
say that.
guy, yeah,
Yeah,
this guy comes to me in the gym, like, oh, you guys are going down tonight. I'm like, oh, what position did you play? He's like,
yeah.
what?
Left stands.
Yeah. But, so I'm like down there, and I don't think I can remember his name. I probably wouldn't say it anyway, but I'm like, listen, so and so, I'm here to help you out. If this is something that you need, I'm happy to help you get this taken care of, protect the family. it was an IUL, and so I went into the different aspects and benefits of this product, but I don't want to go back and forth and get in an argument about whether you need this or not. The need is up to you. I have the ability and the license to get it for you. I just, if we're wasting each other's time, I want to go back and be with my family. And
And but that's, you're not being a dick, you're just being direct but with
yeah, it's
service, which is
just
the difference,
and
right?
exactly. And it's
Yeah.
he would go a little bit, and then he'd kind of pull back. Oh, and I'm like, again, man, like I don't want to waste your time. Like my family's upstairs. I'd love to get this done with you and get you protected. And then at the end of this call, 45 minutes later, I'm checking the score, on my phone as I'm in the call. I'm making sure we're good.
Yeah.
Um, but 45 minutes later, I'm like, hey, I seriously want you to feel like really good about this, because what you just did, like he didn't have any retirement in place. He was about 40, 41, 42, something like that. He had two kids. Like he walked away from that call like with a death benefit in place, multiple six figures, like for his children. I'm a new father, parent, like that's big. I'm like, don't just walk away from this and just think like, oh, I got another bill to pay. It's
Yeah.
like walk away from this feeling really good about yourself. And he's like, thanks, man. Like I really appreciate that. I'm like, seriously, dude, go tell your mom, tell your spouse, your kids, like, I got my retirement. Like I know it's a little late, but like I'm building my retirement. If something happens to me, like you guys are gonna get something, and it's pretty substantial, multiple six figures. Like I'm like, feel good about that. So when you can kind of just level with somebody and be like, look, man, like I just have the license to get you into this, but you have to want it. Like I can tell you all the great things about it, and I do think it's a great product, but you have to want it. I'm not going to force you, into something that you don't need or want. I think there's a need there. That's why I'm talking to you, and you can qualify for it. But if you don't want it, I'm not going to make you have it. And then, circling back and like being like, hey man, that was cool. I know we kind of were like at each other's throats a little bit at the beginning there, but like that was cool. And so it's like I don't know. I usually will try to kind of gauge someone's need out of the gate. What why are they looking into this, to kind of gain some inventory on their situation and get some context as to why this may be important to them, so you can kind of remind them of that as the call unfolds, and then trying to determine if they're qualified for it. I think I was telling one of my agents like a couple of days ago, but and I think I've heard this somewhere. It's not my idea, but I'm like, hey, we're also actively trying to like disqualify people,
Yeah.
and it doesn't necessarily mean like if I'm calling an IUL lead, I'm taking inventory because I need to know if that's what I should be directing them towards, or if I need to find another product. But it's also like disqualifying them from, like, are they, is this a serious like thing to them, or are they just kind of casually like kicking tires? You know what I mean? And so I think that's okay to do that, to be more, a little bit more direct and figuring out like, hey, like, is this something that we're both like serious about, or are you just kind of like messing around here? So
Yeah.
I know you kind of said get into my process. I don't know if that answers your question a little bit, but
No, absolutely. And the way you go through the sale is so evident that, or at least in their mind, you don't need the sale, you don't need the commission. You're like, I
I
have,
told him that guy specifically. I'm like, dude, honestly, man, like I helped a lot of families this week. I really don't need to sell you this. I really could care less. Like, should we hang up? We can
yeah,
find. We should. I'm gonna grab that from Ringy because I want you to listen to that actually.
yeah.
But I'm
Yeah,
like, I
but
don't
that's how
need. Like,
everyone has to act. Even if you
yeah,
need the sale to pay your mortgage next week, like if you act like you need it, the client could tell. But if you go at it from a point like what Jake was saying of like throw the script out, ask them good questions, understand that they filled it out, so they need insurance, and that they've already decided to buy, otherwise they wouldn't be on the phone. So you just have to do a good job of not pissing them off, being nice to them, asking good questions, and figuring out what solution fits their need. And that's all you're doing, dude. So I appreciate your time. I'm sure you'll certainly be back on because you'll be growing like crazy. But thanks for jumping on with us today, dude. And looking forward to watching you grow this thing. I know it's gonna get out of hand pretty quick. So appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you, brother, very much.